The mirror over Simone Carter's bathroom sink shows a mouth she recognizes and a gaze she doesn't. There's the soft line of the scar by her eyebrow from high school track. The tight coil of hair she wrapped into a bun half asleep. The gold cross from her grandmother resting on her collarbone. But the eyes flat, rimmed red, and older than yesterday belong to somebody who knows what happened last night. The blood-slick crescent by her cuticle says she used her hands. The humming in her head says the night pressed on her like a thumb, leaving a bruise she can't point to. Sirens pass 2 streets over. She tells herself they're not for her. Her phone, face down on the sink, vibrates. 3 words on the screen make the floor tilt. You were seen. Quick heads up before we jump in. If you're into real stories, strange disappearances, and the kind of truths people try to bury, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell so you don't miss what comes next. All right, let's get into it. When a Newark high school teacher with a spotless reputation begins waking with bruises, missing hours, and shadowy warnings, a former student is found murdered blocks from her apartment. Simone Carter has no memory of her late-night calls with him or the cash receipt in her pocket that proves she was out there. As a skeptical homicide detective and a well-connected vice principal close in, Simone must untangle whether she's losing time, being drugged, or someone is carefully rehearsing a version of her she doesn't control. Every clue points back to a past she buried and a system that would rather choose a neat culprit than an ugly truth. To survive, she have to confront the darkest corners of her mind and the people who profit when she doubts it. The text comes at 6:11 a.m., before the kettle clicks off, before the neighbor's kids start screaming their way to the bus stop. It arrives clean, without punctuation, like the sender's breath didn't catch while typing. You were seen. By who? She asks out loud to the empty apartment, then flinches at the sound of her own voice. She wipes the crimson half-moon off her thumb, watches diluted pink stream down the porcelain, and sips air like it's hot tea. She types back, wrong number. Then she deletes it. Then she types, who is this? She deletes that, too. Another text lands before she can decide. We told you stop. No name, no icon. A new number with the last 4 digits, repeated, 7,373. Her brain files the repetition away like it means something important, like a combination lock she should remember. She stares at the screen until the letters blur. She does not answer. She turns the kettle off even though the click came 2 minutes ago. She walks out of the bathroom and into the small square of her kitchen like she's entering a crime scene. Everything in its place, the glass jar of brown sugar, the sunstruck pothos trailing toward the window, the single plate from last night's salad leaning in the rack. The smell is not hers. It's faint and chemical, like someone wiped a counter with hospital hands. She opens the fridge. The milk is where she left it, dated good through the end of the week. Her phone vibrates again, not with a text, but with calendar squares. First bell, 8:15. Staff huddle, 7:45. She glances at the wall clock. 6:24 amiffs. She moves, if she puts on something bright, if she ties on a scarf with yellow in it. She can make herself into the woman who walks into room 212 and writes bell work on the board without her hand shaking. Her hand shakes anyway when she reaches for the mug. It's a souvenir from a student art fair 2 springs ago. The shape imperfect, the glaze a messy, joyous blue. The student, a boy with quiet eyes named DJ, had sketched the city skyline around the rim, crooked and loving. She thinks of him because everyone who mattered in her classroom passed in front of that mug, at some point DJ cracking a joke, Maya rolling her eyes, Crystal asking if this is going to be on the test, and for a second, she feels sure that if she can keep those names straight, her head will hold. Her head does not hold. The night skids across the inside of her skull in pieces. A stripe of light across a car hood. The smell of bleach. Someone's breath in her ear, Not close enough to be intimate, but too close to be safe. A cheap radio playing an old Mary J. Blige song. The sudden certainty of falling without moving. She looks down. She's wearing yesterday's jeans. Her keys are still clipped to the belt loop. The lanyard with her school badge knotted like something tried to pull it off. In her back pocket, there's a folded square of paper gone soft with sweat. She smothers the part of herself that wants to throw it out unread and opens it. Riverton Fuel and Go. 2:19 a.m. cash. Pump 3. $21.27. Her name isn't on it. Only the time, the place, and the proof that she was someone else last night and that someone else used cash. She doesn't carry cash. The kettle starts complaining again. She turns off the burner she didn't turn on. On the walk to her car, the air off the Passat tastes like metal. Her complex is a horseshoe of aging brick, hugging a parking lot that never feels big enough. Mr. Lattimore is already outside in his lawn chair, even though there's a sign that says no furniture on the walkway. He's in a faded army jacket regardless of the humidity. He salutes her with his paper coffee cup, eyes bright as if he hasn't slept. "You going in early, Miss Carter?" He calls. He always uses her last name, like he's still a cop and she's still a witness. Older black men call her young lady in church, Miss at the bodega, and Simone, if they're friends of her mother's. Mr. Lattimore calls her Miss Carter with the warmth of a neighbor and the caution of a precinct. "Staff huddle," she says. "They love a meeting. They love to make y'all sit and nod." His laugh is a small cough. "People were around last night. I heard folks." She keeps walking, but her feet slow. "Around here?" "Your floor," he says. "Don't be scared." Not telling you to be scared. Just men forget where they are, sometimes when the world is quiet. Did you see you? Dark? Hoodies. 2 of them. They ain't knocked. They ain't neighbors. I know the sound of a neighbor. Another siren in the distance. She looks at her Corolla. It looks back with the blank gaze of a car that will start no matter who bleeds near it. "Thank you," she says, and means it. Mr. Lattimore nods like they've exchanged something more binding than words. Inside the car, the dashboard clock says 6:39. She smells bleach again, stronger, everywhere. She checks the passenger floor, sees nothing but an umbrella and a copy of The Bluest Eye, one of her seniors, returned yesterday with the spine intact like they didn't read it. The smell lifts when she rolls the windows down. Newark wakes around her. A woman in a leopard robe letting her dog pee by a fire hydrant. A man in a neon vest dragging a trash bin like it owes him money. Teenagers stomping across an intersection 6 deep, ignoring the red hand. The streets still have last night's glitter and grit stamped into them. She drives past a deli where a sign in the window promises week accepted and another promises breakfast any time. Except the cook never makes pancakes past noon because he refuses to be bullied by signs. Riverton High is a low-slung slab of beige that looks like a bunker from certain angles. In June, new murals went up, fists and books in hands holding hands, and for a few weeks, the place looked like a promise. This morning, the promise feels far away. The staff huddle is in the library. Coffee in aluminum urns, danishes sweating on a tray, assistants praying someone brought fruit. Vice Principal Caldwell stands at the front like he came down from a poster about leadership. His suit is the exact gray of a storm cloud that doesn't know whether to break. He wears his impatience like cologne. 2 quick items, he says, clapping his hands together. 1, tardiness. We model what we expect. Doors open at 8. You are expected to be physically present at your doors at 8:05. Represent. Caldwell says represent, like a man who believes knowing 2 lines from Juicy makes him a historian. He is black like she is, which is not a shield against anything when someone is trying to move up the ladder. 2, he says, safety. We're partnering with Bexley Security to update our camera system. They'll be around performing assessments. Be professional. If you have any questions, channel them through me. Thanks. Simone feels the words down the back of her neck. Bexley Security. She hasn't seen Marcus in almost 2 years. Not since he threw a plate at the wall and told her to stop making him crazy. Bexley was the job after the plate. He always liked a badge he could clip to his belt. Ms. Carter, Caldwell says when the clapping is over, sotto voce as people unstack chairs. You look tired. In his mouth, tired sounds like irresponsible. Everything okay? She smiles the smile reserved for men like him, the one that says thank you for noticing, and also you have no right to notice. Fine, she says, grating. Take care of yourself, he says, a sentence that often means the opposite. Then, almost as an afterthought, don't forget your observation next week. In room 212, the fluorescent lights flicker in the way custodial says is within the normal range. Her classroom always smells faintly of dry erase, and whatever gum her third period is sneaking that week. She writes bell work on the board. Describe a time you changed your mind. What made you change? She chooses it because the question is clean, and she is not. She checks her phone under the desk like a teenager. No new texts. Fine. First period comes in sleepy and too awake at once, voices sawing and hugging the way teenagers do. Miss Carter, you see they moved the pep rally? Maya says, dropping her backpack like it weighs the same as a gossip. They move it to Friday. Like we gonna have Spirit on a Friday. Spirit is a weekday, Troy says. Spirit only lives on Monday, where it can eat your soul. You all have to write for 5 minutes, Simone says. Then you can complain about Spirit. Write about what? Crystal asks, even though it's on the board, even though Simone knows she's going to ask again after the 5 minutes. Simone points at the board. Crystal squints at the words like they've betrayed her. Ooh, she says, but she pulls out her notebook line by line like it hurts. For 8 minutes, the classroom is a field of bent heads, pens scratching, phones face down because Miss Carter doesn't play. For 8 minutes, Simone is the version of herself she knows. It steadies her, the way routine does, the way an old church song holds you up in a hospital hallway. She's passing desks, reading over shoulders, Troy writing about changing his mind on his father, Maya writing about a friend she didn't forgive until she did, when the knock comes. It's not a timid student knock. It's Knuckles with a badge behind them. Keep working, she tells them. I'm right outside. In the hall, a black detective with tired eyes and a tie loosened a decision too late introduces himself as Detective Mercer. Elijah, he says, as if that will make his presence feel less like cold air on a warm neck. Beside him, a white woman with a high bun and square shoulders nods. Hart, she says. Everything okay? Simone asks, even though that question never makes sense when detectives come to school. Can we talk somewhere private? Mercer asks, softer than she expects. She looks back at the door window. Troy is already making faces at the glass. She holds up a finger, the teacher universal for stop or die. Ms. Carter, who are they? Maya mouths. Simone smiles with her mouth and not her eyes, follows the detectives down the hall to the empty copy room, past the posters begging staff to refill the paper trays when they run out. She leans against a cabinet that rattles. We won't take much of your time, Mercer says. We're investigating a death. Her fingers curl into her palms until the crescent cuts throb. Who? Dwayne Hargrove, Hart says. Goes by DJ. The copy room flickers. For a second, she isn't in her body. For a second, she is a voice left on a phone, an old song barely audible under the sound of cars. Then her body comes back hard enough to bruise. When? She asks. Early this morning, Mercer says. Found by the river. We're trying to establish who he spoke to last. Your number's in his logs. Calls around midnight. A few last week. Texts too. Simone suddenly tastes metal. She thinks of the gas station receipt. She thinks of how DJ's handwriting had improved over junior year because he finally cared what his words looked like. DJ graduated, she says, like that's a legal argument. He came by the classroom last week. Asked me about a recommendation for a job. Where? Hart asks. UPS, Simone says. He wanted night shifts. Her mind flashes the wrong way, to a brown uniform, to the way men talk in warehouses. She swallows. He had me in his phone, late? Midnight and after, Mercer says. His eyes aren't rude. They aren't anything but very tired. Did you talk to him then? I don't, she starts and stops. She pictures herself in the mirror. She hears the radio. She doesn't remember. I don't think so. That's not the same as no, Hart says, like she's correcting grammar. I don't think so, Simone repeats, because the truth feels too fragile to say all the way. If he called, I didn't pick up. I was sleeping. Mind if we take a look at your phone logs? Mercer asks. Just confirm times? I mind, Simone says, and surprises herself. But I can tell you what I can. Hart's mouth flickers, not quite a smile. Mercer's face doesn't change. Understood, he says. We're going to talk to a lot of people. Thanks for your time. If you remember any disputes, anybody he mentioned, call me. He slides a card across the humming copy machine. The name is steady. The phone number ends in 7,373. She stares at the digits, then up at his face. Is this your number? She asks, dumbly. Yeah, he says, looking at Hart as if to say, did I spill coffee on my tie and not see? That's my cell. She nods like a normal person who sees patterns and doesn't immediately think the world is plotting against her. She puts the card in her pocket. He was a good kid, she says, and immediately hears the hollow in those words. She thinks of the day DJ got sent to her room for having his hood up, the way he'd shrugged and said, "You're the only one who doesn't look at me like I'm stealing air." She thinks about how often she made him take his hood down anyway, because the classroom is a kingdom inside another kingdom, and sometimes she bowed to the wrong one. Sorry for your loss, Mercer says. The words are not quite a formula. He means them, and also they're a shape his job makes his mouth form. They leave her with the copy machine. She watches the lights, red, green, red, like a cheap Christmas. She breathes through her nose so she won't cry. In the hall, Caldwell is waiting like a dentist who has been told a cavity is almost ripe. Everything okay? He asks, his voice soft enough to be mistaken for empathy if you don't know him. Former student, Simone says. They're talking to everyone. Ah, Caldwell says. Sad. Which one? When she tells him, he makes a face like he remembered DJ as a file and not a person. He had attendance issues, Caldwell says. We did what we could. I did what I could, Simone thinks, and can't be sure. By lunch, the whole school knows. In the cafeteria, a football player cries into a carton of chocolate milk. In the stairwell, two girls show each other the last texts DJ sent them. He said, pull up, one says, and the other laughs, because if she doesn't laugh, she'll shake apart. In room 212 after 7th period, the quiet is a kind of weather. She stays late because it's better than going home to her walls and the mirror. She grades half an essay and stares at a line about Baldwin like it's written in a different alphabet. Her phone is heavy in her pocket. She pulls it out, scrolls to her call log, and sees it. 12:07 a.m. Outgoing. 12:23 a.m. Incoming. 12:58 a.m. Missed. 1:11 a.m. Outgoing. DJ. Her heart knocks like a fist on a door. Her thumb trembles over the voicemail icon, steals, taps. The voice is not hers. It's a man, breathy, a little amused, like he's watching someone approach. Yo, Teach, DJ says in the background, laughing, friendly. That's weird. That your man? Then a woman, muffled, Maybe her, maybe not, says something that's swallowed by the honk of a car. Simone scrubs back, turns the volume up, presses the phone against her ear. The honk, the wind, a song from a radio. Real love, tinny, like it's coming from a distant speaker. Then the woman again, clearer, the words hot and close even through the static. Don't make me do this. The message clicks off. That's it. No scream, no struggle. Just a sentence that doesn't explain anything but makes Simone's blood run cold. She hears a voice in the hall and nearly puts the phone through the window. It's Giada, her best friend since sophomore year of college, wearing scrubs and a face that says she's already handled other people's emergencies before lunch. "Why do you look like a ghost?" Giada asks, stepping in without waiting. She never waits. She throws her bag onto the couch by the dictionaries and assesses Simone with nurse eyes. "You're pale and clammy, and your hair is doing that thing where it doesn't know what it wants to be." Simone holds up the phone. Giada listens, frowning in concentration. When the clip ends, Giada puts the phone down like it's fragile. "That you?" she asks. "I don't know. Sounds a little like you, but also not. Like someone doing you on TV. Where was this? I don't remember." She tells Giada about the texts in the receipt and Detective Mercer's card. She doesn't say the part where 7,373 repeats like a curse. She doesn't say that when Hart said midnight and after, something in her chest shivered. "You need a talk screen," Giada says, like she's declaring the sky blue. "If you think you're losing time? If you don't drink and you're waking up with receipts? Someone could be dosing you." "Roofies?" Simone says. The word feels like a bad punchline from an old sitcom. People don't do that anymore, right? People do whatever they can get in a bottle, Giada says. GHB, benzos, weird cocktails. It's Newark, babe, not Mars. Do you have a primary? I have you. I'm not your doctor. I'm your friend who occasionally steals mouth swabs from work. Giada digs in her bag like a magician. Fine. Pee in this cup like it's college. We'll see what we can see. The cup looks too small to hold any part of last night. Simone stares at it until Giada pushes it into her hand. I'll owe you, Simone says. You already owe me for that time in Atlantic City when I convinced the bouncer you were Beyonce's cousin, Giada says. Go before your bladder rebels. In the bathroom, Simone stares at herself again and thinks, if I'm being drugged, who? If I'm doing this to myself, why? The mirror doesn't answer. It never does. She pees into the cup because some problems bow to procedure. She doesn't go straight home. She drives to the Fuel and Go on Ferry Street because the receipt won't let her do anything else. The sun is low, making the stretch of fast food and laundromats look like a postcard from a city that always promises more than it delivers. The cashier is a tired woman in a hoodie that says New Jersey in block letters like a dare. You got cameras? Simone asks, folding the receipt until it nearly shreds. Yeah, we don't show people, the woman says, without looking up. I think I was here last night, Simone says. I don't remember. Someone could have been with me. I'm not trying to accuse anybody. She hears her voice thin out. She sees the woman's eyes, sharp now, measuring for a problem. If I had an issue, who do I talk to? The manager's not here, the woman says, as if the manager is not a person but a policy. You can leave your number. Simone does. The woman tucks it under the register like a tip. In the parking lot, a boy on a bike watches her get into her car, like he's deciding whether she could be a mark. She smiles without showing teeth and locks the doors. At home, the hallway smells like someone spraying cheap spray to pretend they don't smoke. There's an envelope on her doormat with no stamp. Inside, a Polaroid. Her front door, her doormat, her rug. Taken from the hallway at night. The glossy black eye of the peephole stares back at her in the photo like an indictment. For a moment, all she can hear is blood. Then she shoves the photo back into the envelope, slides it into a cereal box, and puts the cereal box on top of her fridge. Like hiding evidence in plain sight makes it less dangerous. She double locks the door out of superstition and sense. She texts Jada, "Got something." She texts, "Don't freak." Then she puts her phone face down on the table and lets the silence of the apartment eat around the edges of her. She falls asleep on the couch without meaning to, wakes with the taste of pennies and the TV arguing with itself. The digital clock says 1:03. She doesn't remember lying down. Her phone vibrates against the table in a little tantrum. New text. Still not listening. She texts back before fear can stop her. "What do you want?" The reply is immediate. "To stop you." She is off the couch before she knows she's moving. "Stop me from what?" She asks aloud as if the sender can hear. From the hallway, a soft scrape, like shoes adjusting weight. Simone stands very still. She hears Mr. Latimore's TV through the wall, low, some old movie with a trumpet in it. She hears her own breath. She hears nothing else. She steps to the door and peers through the peephole. The hall swims, distorted. A shadow crosses the far wall, not close enough to be a face. Her phone buzzes again. You were warned. When the knock comes, it's not a badge knock. It's a polite knock, 3 taps, like a neighbor borrowing sugar. "Yes?" she calls, her voice caught in her throat. "It's Detective Mercer," a voice says. She exhales, the relief hitting so fast it makes her dizzy. She opens the chain, opens the door. He stands there alone, hands visible, no partner. His tie is loose again. He looks like a man who lives at work and goes home to sleep in an empty room. "I'm sorry for the hour," he says. "Can I come in?" She thinks of the photo of her door taken at night, of texts with no face, of the smell of bleach in her car. She thinks of what a woman is taught about opening doors. She steps aside. "Yeah," she says. "I was awake." He takes in the apartment in a glance, the way men who've cleared rooms learn to look. He doesn't comment on the cereal box on top of the fridge or the empty cup by the sink. He holds a small plastic evidence bag like a second wallet. "We pulled a clip from a city camera near the river," he says, businesslike, because business is easier than what they do to each other when they try to be human. "It's not great quality, but I thought you should see it before we get warrants for phones. And before somebody at the precinct, who doesn't have a filter, tells a cousin who tells the wrong person, and suddenly it's on the internet." He hands her the bag. Inside is a thumb drive. He nods toward her TV. "Do you have?" She does. The input fights her for a minute. Her hands are clumsy. The clip is grainy, a rectangle of dark and a rectangle of darker. The timestamp says 12:56. A figure moves through the shot, hood up, head down. The figure pauses at the edge of the frame, looks toward the river, looks back. Even in grayscale, the posture rings through Simone like a bell. She has seen this walk in mirrors. She has graded papers with this hand. The figure lifts a phone to their ear. The city light catches a small gold cross. "Is that?" Her voice breaks. She clears her throat. "Is that me?" Mercer doesn't answer immediately. He watches her instead of the screen. "It looks like you," he says. But looks like is not is. We'll do the work. Her ribs loosen a fraction of an inch. He reaches back into his pocket, brings out a square of blue shop towel, closed with a paperclip. "There's more," he says. We pulled a box cutter from a dumpster 2 blocks from the scene. The handle was wiped. The blade still had trace. "We're waiting on a match. We also found this." He opens the blue towel and lays a small battered key fob on her coffee table. It's a school fob. Riverton High stamped in cheap silver on the back. The split ring is stretched as if it was pulled off something in a hurry. Her stomach drops as if an elevator cable has been cut. That yours? Mercer asks. No, she says, fast, automatic, because the version of the truth that saves you is fast. Then another version catches up. Last week, she had tugged on her lanyard, and one of the rings had been bent. She had meant to fix it. She had not. I mean, it looks like mine, but I have mine. She starts for her bag on the table, fumbles with the zipper. Her fingers touch the bottom of the bag and close on nothing. Her lanyard is not there. She looks at Mercer like he will hand her a life raft. He looks at her with the kind of pity that makes her want to bite. We also have your voice on a voicemail, he says gently. I think you've heard it. I have, she says. I don't remember saying it. Memory's a funny thing, he says. Not funny, uh-huh. His phone buzzes. He glances at the screen, swears under his breath. We just got a hit, he says. On the blade. Whose? She asks. He looks at her face in a way that suggests he doesn't enjoy this part of the job. We're not supposed to share this before the lab signs off. But it's late, and you're not going to sleep anyway. And I don't like surprises either. He holds her gaze. Partial match to your DNA and an old medical file. Looks like a suture kit from when you broke your wrist in college. She hears a sound like a small animal in a trap. It takes her a second to realize it came from her. Her wrist throbs with a memory that isn't pain so much as humiliation. Rain on a field. A bad fall. A white doctor who said, well, this is why you girls should stick to books. And then laughed at his own attempt at a joke. A nurse with kind eyes swabbed the blood. A cotton ball in a tray. Somewhere, something saved for the record. Years later, it means she is caught by something she never consented to. I didn't do this, she says. The words feel thin, like a net with holes. I hear you, he says, and she believes he means it and knows at the same time that hearing is not the same as saving. Do you have someone who can be with you tonight? I'm not 5, she says, then winces at the temper in it. I'm sorry. My friend Jada. She's a nurse. She knows. Call her, he says. Call her before I walk out of here, so I know you did. She dials. Jada's hello is full of sleep and fight. When Simone finishes, Jada says, I'm on my way, like there is no other option. Don't talk to nobody else without me there. Not the cops. Not the principal. Not Jesus. You hear me? I hear you, Simone whispers. Mercer nods like a coach at the end of a terrible quarter. We'll be in touch, he says. He steps toward the door, pauses. Miss Carter? Yeah? Bexley Security has a contract with the district, he says, as if it is weather. They'll be around at school this week. If anyone from their team approaches you outside of work, let me know. She looks at him with a face that must betray something, because he adds, it's a small city. People have history. When the door closes, the apartment exhales. Simone presses her palms to her eyes until she sees fireworks. She pulls them away from her face and looks down at the crescent cuts in her skin. They look like a pattern, like a code. Jada arrives in an old hoodie and big hoop earrings because she has never believed you have to choose between battle and beauty. She wraps Simone in a hug that feels like a compression bandage. Okay, she says into Simone's hair. We're going to make a timeline. We're going to lock your windows. We're going to put a chair under the knob like we're 80 and it's 1979. And we're going to pray not because we think God is a vending machine, but because talking into the dark is better than letting it talk back. They move around the apartment together, running water, checking the chain, making tea, because that is what black women do when there are no instructions. Simone tells Jada about Marcus. She hadn't meant to, but it rolls out. He's Bexley, Simone says. Or he was. He had a way of knowing things about me I hadn't told him. Like passwords? Jada asks. Like where you keep your extra keys? Like how I think when I'm scared, she says. Like the excuses I'll believe. Jada sits very still, the tea bag string hanging off her cup like a kite tail. You think he'd do this? I think he liked to rehearse me, Simone says softly. He liked when I performed the story that made him the hero. And when I didn't, he revised. Jada's eyes go warm and sharp. Then we take away the props, she says. We change the lines. They don't sleep. They watch the light creep over the carpet. In the gray before morning, Simone's phone buzzes again. A final text. Today. Keep quiet. She lifts the phone like a weapon and types, "Meet me then." The reply pings as the sun breaks the edge of the blinds. Already did. She looks at Jada. What the hell does that mean? Jada's mouth is a tight line. It means we're not going to school today, she says. It means we go to the gas station when the manager's there. It means we call that detective every time a leaf falls sideways. It means we go get your blood drawn properly and not in a school bathroom. She grabs her keys. Put on sneakers. We're going to run toward the thing. At the fuel and go, the manager looks like a man who lost a bet with his own face. He scrolls through footage like he's watching a boring movie. That's your car? He asks eventually, pointing at a dark shape pulling into pump 3 at 2:17 a. Woman gets out. Hood up. Phone to ear. The camera catches the side of her face in a frame and a half. Simone wants to step into the video, grab the woman by the shoulders, and shake her until the truth falls out. Another figure appears at the edge of the frame. Tall, lean, ball cap low. The woman turns toward him. They talk. The woman gestures, a little sharp, like she's making a point. The man steps closer. The woman steps back. Then this is where the cheap quality works in the man's favor. The tape jumps. 2 seconds are gone. When it lands again, the woman is getting back into the car. The man stands with his hands in his pockets, weight on one hip, like he's waiting on nothing. The woman drives away. The timestamp clicks to 2:19 a.m. Simone's receipt time. The man looks straight up at the camera, not quite directly, as if he knows where it is, but knows better than to be obvious. For one frame, the brim of the cap lifts. For one frame, Simone sees 3 lines on his cheek she knows like an old scar. Marcus. She does not say his name. She swallows it, because once the name is in the air, it becomes real in a way she's not ready for. Jada squeezes her wrist hard enough to bruise. We make copies, Jada says to the manager, her voice mixing charm and threat. Now. She texts Mercer with shaking fingers. Got video. Station. Shows me with a man. Missing 2 seconds. Looks like tampered. He texts back faster than she expects. Send stills. Don't leave. We're on our way. They wait in the car with the doors locked. The morning starts its regular business around them. School buses. Men arguing in Portuguese on the sidewalk. A woman dragging a suitcase toward the bus, as if the handle can pull her out of her life. Simone stares at the station window until the door opens and Detective Hart appears first, jaw set, then Mercer, who moves like he thinks every second could be a misunderstanding that costs too much. Inside again, the manager acts offended that the law is in his store. Hart's face does not change. Sir, she says, crisp as fresh paper, you've got a gap on your camera feed. That's either a malfunction or someone cut it. Either way, we need to see your equipment. Warrant, the manager says, and Hart looks at Mercer like she's calling the play. Get me the make and model, Mercer says to Simone and Jada quietly. We'll get what we need. Meanwhile, I want those stills. He presses his card number into her text thread. When she sends the frame of the man's cheek, of the brim lifting, he studies it with a cop's stare and a cousin's grit. You know him? He asks lightly, like he already knows the answer. Simone looks at the still until the pixels blur. I used to, she says. He knows me. Mercer nods once. We'll talk to Bexley, he says. I was going to anyway. Hart's radio crackles, and something in her body changes a tiny flick, like a horse hearing thunder. She listens, answers, turns to Mercer. The room thickens before she speaks. They found another body, she says. Same side of the river. Simone's mouth goes dry. Her sense of the floor changes, like somebody lifted it and set it down 2 inches to the left. Who? She asks, even though she knows that saying a name won't protect a person from being the wrong answer. Hart glances at Simone, then away, as if eye contact would make it more of a confession. Young woman, she says. No ID yet. Ball cap found in the reeds nearby. Mercer turns to Simone. You still okay to come down to the precinct? He asks, and in the middle of the fluorescent lights and the smell of burnt coffee, he manages to sound like a human being. Simone opens her mouth to say she's not going anywhere without a lawyer, without Jada, without God. Jada answers for her. We'll drive behind you, she says to Mercer. And when we get there, you're not putting her in a room by herself. Hart's mouth tightens just enough to be mistaken for a smile. We don't want her by herself, she says. That's when the wrong stories get loud. As they step out into the sun, a school bus passes, full of teenagers pressing faces to the glass at a world that refuses to slow down for their grief. Simone thinks of room 212, of the sentence on the board. Describe a time you changed your mind. She hopes they'll change their minds about the world before the world changes them into something small and sharp. Her phone buzzes one more time before she gets into the car. A blocked number. A voicemail. She doesn't press play. She can't. Not yet. At a red light on the way to the precinct, they're stuck behind a delivery truck that's taken its time learning how to turn. The radio in the next car over is playing something low and familiar. Simone turns her head just enough to catch the shape of the driver's cheek in the reflection of a shop window 3 lines like old roads. A cap brim low. The light turns green. The truck lurches forward. The car with the song and the cheek, and the cap doesn't move. He is watching her watch him. Jada says her name once, warning and prayer at once. Simone inches the car forward. The driver in the cap smiles, a slash without humor, and peels off down a side street with the easy grace of a man who's always playing 3 moves ahead. At the precinct, fluorescent light flattens everything again. Mercer puts them in a room with a table that has seen too many fists. He brings bottled water and pretends not to notice when Simone won't open hers, because the things she trusted last night smelled clean too. He clicks a recorder on and says the date and the time like a ritual. Hart leans against the wall like patience in boots. Tell us the last thing you remember before midnight, Mercer says. Then we'll move minute by minute. Simone keeps her eyes on the bottle she won't drink. She starts. She talks. She hears herself name things she hadn't meant to say out loud. She hears herself say Marcus. She hears herself say the word afraid without swallowing it first. And as the shape of the night begins to draw itself in the air between them, an officer knocks and says, Detective Mercer, can I borrow you just for a second? You have to see this. Mercer steps into the hall. Hart stays. Jada reaches under the table and squeezes Simone's hand once, hard. Through the thin wall, they hear a voice, male, low. Mercer says something too soft to catch. The low voice replies, more urgent now. Hart's eyes flick to the door. The air in the room goes taut like a piano wire. Mercer comes back in with a face like he's trying not to be the messenger. The lab swabbed the inside of DJ's nails, he says. We got 2 profiles. 1 partial match to you, and 1 full match to an unknown that just came back with a hit. Simone doesn't breathe. Jada's fingers are still around hers, a cuff to keep her from floating away. Mercer lays a mugshot on the table. A younger face than the one at the gas station, but the same 3 lines on the cheek. The name under the photo looks like a word her mouth doesn't want to form. Marcus Bell, Mercer says. We've been looking at him on a parole violation for a minute. Now he's our person of interest. Simone stares at the picture until the edges blur into the gray of the table. The room swims, then steadies. She looks up at Mercer and Hart, at the water she won't drink, at Jada's fierce jaw, at the camera in the corner with its tiny, unblinking eye. I told you I didn't do this, she says, and hears in her own voice both the relief of a door swinging open and the dread of the hallway it leads into. Outside, a siren starts up again, a familiar wail sliding through the morning like a warning you hear too late. The recorder on the table blinks its tiny red light. The story has found its next page, whether she's ready for it or not. She thinks of the text that said already did, and knows in a way that has nothing to do with memory that whatever she was supposed to keep quiet about has already stepped into the light. The question is not whether the city will listen. The precinct walls were the same tired beige no matter where they took her. By late afternoon, Simone had repeated her story so many times that the words lost their edges. Still, every telling cut her throat on the way out. She knew the detectives weren't sure if they were listening to a victim or a suspect. Jada stayed, her presence a line of defense. When Mercer pressed, Jada pressed back. She already said she doesn't remember. Jada snapped when Hart pushed again about the voicemail. You ever forget a night? A drive? A fight? You think it means you killed somebody? Mercer rubbed his temples. We're not saying she killed anyone. We're saying Marcus Bell is moving in her shadow, and we need to know why he chose her. Simone's stomach nodded at the name. She'd spent 2 years stitching herself closed after Marcus, and now he was prying at every seam. That night, Jada insisted Simone stay at her apartment. It was safer, closer to people. But as Simone tried to sleep on Jada's couch, she couldn't shake the feeling that Marcus wasn't just haunting her, he was rehearsing her, the way he used to. He had studied her fear like a textbook. He knew which lies she'd swallow, which silences she'd sit in. And if Mercer was right, Marcus was already 2 moves ahead. 2 days later, the break came not from police work, but from a student. Maya Loud, sharp, too smart to sit still, slid into room 212 after the last bell. Miss Carter, can I show you something? She whispered, eyes darting like she already knew it was dangerous. She held out her phone. The screen played a shaky video from someone's story. A bonfire at the river. Laughter, bottles, the kind of gathering Simone always warned them about. Then the camera swung, briefly catching a man in a cap. 3 scars on his cheek. Marcus. He was there last week, Maya whispered. That's DJ's cousin's page, but he deleted it. Simone's hands trembled as she forwarded the clip to Mercer. She wanted to protect Maya, shield her from the machine that would chew her up for being in the wrong place with the wrong skin. But the truth was heavier than fear. Mercer called within the hour. We've got him on the riverbank. Good eye, Carter. But listen, Marcus knows we're closing in. Stay with people you trust. Tonight. That night, Jada drove Simone back to her apartment so she could grab clothes. They walked the hallway together, Simone clutching her friend's arm. The smell of bleach hit before the door even opened. Inside, the apartment was too clean. Every surface wiped, her papers stacked in perfect squares. On the table lay her lanyard, the split key ring mended with new steel. And beside it, a note. You keep forgetting the lines. I'll help you remember. Jada swore under her breath, dialing Mercer with one hand while locking the door with the other. We're not staying here, she hissed. But before they could leave, a scrape echoed in the hallway. Heavy boots, pacing slow. A knock. 3 polite taps. Jada raised her finger to her lips. The peephole showed nothing but shadow. Then Marcus's voice, calm, practiced. Simone, you're telling my story wrong. The air in the apartment froze. Simone's body remembered the way he used to lean over her shoulder, correcting her tone, her sentences, until she doubted her own tongue. But this time, she didn't move. She whispered to Jada, "Record." Jada's phone caught everything: the knock, the voice, the cadence of a man rehearsing control. When Mercer and Hart arrived minutes later, Marcus was gone. But the recording wasn't. The trial was 6 months later. By then, Marcus had been pulled from a safe house in East Orange, hiding with a cousin who owed him nothing but silence. The jury heard the voicemail, the gas station footage, Maya's clip, the recording outside Simone's door. They saw the Polaroids, the receipts, the way Marcus tried to write her into a play where she was both victim and villain. And for once, the story wasn't his to tell. Simone sat in court every day, Jada beside her, Mercer nodding when she caught his eye. She spoke when asked, steady even when Marcus smirked like she was still his student, still his project. Her voice cracked only once, when she said, "He wanted me to believe I was dangerous. But I'm not the one who disappeared those kids." The jury believed her. Marcus Bell was convicted of 2 counts of murder, 1 attempted, and a stack of charges with names that sounded like cages. Afterward, Newark moved on the way cities do with another crime, another fire, another child who deserved better. But Simone's life bent differently. She kept teaching. Her classroom still smelled like dry erase and gum. She still wrote questions on the board, though now they cut deeper. When have you been forced to tell someone else's story? What happens when you reclaim it? Sometimes she woke in the night, hand bleeding from crescent cuts she'd made in her sleep. Sometimes she stared at her reflection too long, waiting for another version of herself to blink back. But she learned that survival wasn't about forgetting. It was about refusing to let Marcus's script become her own. On the anniversary of DJ's death, she left flowers at the riverbank. Maya met her there, taller now, her voice sharper. They stood in silence until Maya asked, "Do you ever feel like he still wants us scared?" Simone touched the cross at her collarbone. "Let him what? We're still here." The river carried their reflection away, split and mended, until it looked like something whole. Not every story ends with justice. Some just stop, where the paperwork does. But if you listened closely, this wasn't just about what happened. It was about what we ignore, the assumptions we let slide, the voices we tune out because they don't come in the right tone. Somewhere, someone's living with the fallout of this story, not as a headline, but as their everyday. So if this story stayed with you, don't let it fade. Shine it forward. Ask more. Doubt what's too quiet. Because what we choose to see or not see decides what happens next. Like, comment, share. Not for clicks, but for clarity. Because awareness is how silence breaks, and how truth finds daylight.